confidence is not based on the truth, it is based on choice. Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Taryn McCarthy, and today is going to be a great day. Every day is a great day. Have you caught on yet? Have you found out yet that is my mantra every single morning of my life? It was given to me by my son when he must have been 5 or 6 years old, and now he's 15. I can't even believe it, almost 15. So literally for 10 years, I've been doing what my son Finn told me to do, is wake up every morning with this intention. Today is going to be a great day, and I gift it to you because today is going to be a great day. This episode is going to be a great episode. I am on fire about this episode. Thank you so much for joining in last episode's discussion with the one and only Marlies Hubert. She was incredible. I got so much out of that. Her breath work instruction and her coaching in terms of how to use breath work to get back into your body and understand yourself in a deeper way was so influential for me. And we're actually going to touch a little bit on breath work today as we talk about conquering self-confidence and how breathing can help you with that. So I'm excited to introduce a little bit of breath work in today's episode. Next episode, I cannot wait for. It is an interview with Jason Gutman, and what we're talking about is emotional eating. So if that rings a bell or sparks any kind of interest in you, please join us for the next episode on the Business of Happiness podcast when we talk about emotional eating. I know that will be a very, very good episode. And for those of you who have been joining us on the Business of Happiness Hive, our private Facebook, it has been just so great. What an awesome group of men and women. I'm so proud to be a part of this group. Please join us if you are interested in gaining more access of support and encouragement and a like-minded group of people who really are just there to add value for each other. There's some incredible experts there, and many of our guests who we interview on the Business of Happiness podcast are also Happiness Hive members, and they're adding so much value there really right now for free. So before this group becomes a paid group, join us. Come on over, find us on the Business of Happiness Hive, and take advantage of the excellent content that you have there. Today's episode will have unique content in the form of a workbook to help conquer self-confidence that you'll be able to get on the Business of Happiness Hive. That's the only place you can get it for now, so please join us there. In the meantime, I just have to give a shout out to our newest members, because that's another benefit of joining us on the group, is you get to hear your name called out on the podcast. And it will be there forever and ever. You can listen to it over and over again if you like. Your grandchildren can listen to it again in decades to come. So welcome to Magda and Katie, Erin, Jean, Nicole, Dawn, Diane, and Kim. And if you have a great name from another country or another language and you'd like to hear me try to say it, I think I got Magda down, because Magda, I know, is from South Africa. So welcome, Magda. But if you would like to hear me try to pronounce your name, this is where it'll happen. Let's jump into today's episode about conquering self-confidence, because this is a big topic for so many of us. In certain aspects of our lives, we just feel wildly inconfident. And that lack of confidence, the lack of self-confidence, is the one thing that can keep us from realizing our dreams. 2 episodes ago, we talked about shame. And shame definitely adds to lack of confidence. So the question is, how do I become more confident? How do I find and build self-confidence? This is what we're diving into today. So let's get started with this quote that I posted a couple weeks ago that says, "Confidence is not based on the truth. It is based on choice." Whew. Confidence is not based on the truth. It's based on choice. That can hit hard. That feels like a lot of responsibility, but I choose to see it in a different light, in that we can always step into finding our confidence. Now, the truth is, we are always falling on a range of confidence. And really, in different aspects of our lives, we might feel super confident or super lacking in confidence. So you might find yourself being very confident in relationships and establishing relationships, where other people might feel very insecure about establishing good friendships and relationships. It might come very naturally and easily to you, but it doesn't mean that there's not another aspect in your life that you don't feel insecure in. And so, number one step is just being open and honest with yourself about where you land on that range. You can almost imagine it from on a scale from 0 to 10. Where do you land in your confidence, and specifically in the area you want to become more confident in? So that means you'll probably be down on the 0 side. People who fall on the 0 side of confidence, where they're really lacking in confidence, those are people who are afraid to start something, or very pessimistic and might put things off. That pessimism might be something that makes you realize in your life that you're not starting a project, you're putting it off, you're procrastinating, and really what that is fear. If you're way over on the 10 side of the scale from 0 to 10, you might be overconfident in something. These are the people who are confident without the results. They're overly confident without real good data to show them that they have great skill in that arena. But these people just don't care. They feel greatly confident. And the interesting thing is that when it comes to successful people, when it comes to people who are successful in business, in wealth, in health and their own body, incredible athletes, or even in happiness, research shows that there is a common denominator with anybody who has wildly great success. And what that is they've all failed. They've all failed and then picked themselves up and tried again. And that is without exception. There is not one successful person who has not found a way to overcome failure and to step forward again and try again. And inherent in that is confidence. The thing is, just because you are on the lower end of the confidence scale does not mean that you need to let that define you or even predict your future actions or your future results. This is malleable, and people aren't just born confident or unconfident or insecure. You can actually change where you stand on this range. You can actually affect and improve your self-confidence in any arena. And that's the truth. I promise you that you can build your self-confidence. And that's where that saying that confidence really is a choice. And although that sounds heavy, let me help you with some tools of how to affect it. So let's look at how confidence establishes itself. Or rather, how does insecurity establish itself? How did you become so insecure in this one arena in your life? So let's start with the thought process, because everything starts with the thoughts that we keep telling ourselves over and over again. And the fascinating thing is that it was more often a thought that someone else put on you that you grabbed onto and created a belief out of. So all that a belief is a thought that you keep thinking over and over again. So it starts with a negative thought. Maybe it was a negative story that someone gave you. Let's say in middle school, someone told you you were not athletic, you couldn't run, you were a poor runner. And then someone else might have said something to that effect. And then you started thinking, I'm not athletic, I'm not athletic, I'm not good at this. And that thought process kept going until it became a belief system. And somewhere along the trajectory, you just owned it. You just decided for yourself that that is who I am. That became a belief. And as soon as we take a belief system on, it affects our actions or our inactions. So by believing you're not an athlete, you're not going to start running. Make sense? This was very true for me when I was trying to run for a marathon years ago. And I had decided I wanted to run, but I had been telling myself a story for decades that I was not an athlete. And so it affected my actions, and it actually affected my inaction. So just getting out of bed to run early in the morning, which is fundamental in running a marathon, you actually have to run. You actually have to practice running and get miles under your belt. It was actually affecting the action I was taking or not taking. Now follow me. We started with the thought process. The thoughts, the repetitive thoughts, became a belief system. Then that belief system turned into actions or inactions. And now we start feeling expectations or feelings around it. So if I'm not getting out of bed in the morning to go running, my expectation is I'm not going to be able to run this marathon. I start feeling less and less like an athlete. We've gone from our thought process strengthening our belief system affecting our action or our inaction, and now really solidifying it with expectations and feelings around the action or inaction. The next thing is we start to see results. Yep, I didn't run. I'm not a runner. And those results give us the proof or the evidence that really secures that belief that we established. So now we have the evidence that we are not good at that. And now I really know I'm not an athlete. And that comes right back to that thought process again. So what you're noticing is this cycle that keeps feeding itself and strengthens that knowledge and that insecurity. It's the same thing that strengthens confidence. If you can start with a really confident thought process and say it to yourself over and over and over again, it now becomes a really confident belief in yourself. And having confidence and the belief in yourself puts in the action. If you believe you can do something, then you're going to easily do it, even if you're just starting at it. Even if you're not very good. That leads to our expectations and our feeling about it. If you're confident, you feel great about it. You feel great about the action that you just took. The next thing comes the results. And the results are very subjective because the results can mean one thing to you and another thing to me. If I ran a 5K, you could be cheering from the sidelines thinking, that is amazing. You are an athlete. You just ran a 5K. And I could be very hard on myself and say, 5K is nowhere near what I need to run for a marathon. That could be very defeating. So that those results are extremely subjective and they will feed the proof and the evidence I need. If I have a very confident outlook, that 5K will feel like a huge win. And that's all the evidence and proof I need to keep going to feed my thought process that, yep, I'm an athlete. I'm crushing this game. See how the cycle can perpetuate itself. So now the question is, how do we insert a new outcome when it comes to someone who is feeling very insecure, someone who is lacking self-confidence? How do we stop this cycle? And what I've identified is there are 4 places in this cycle where you can insert a new either thought process action or mindset that can change the cycle and interrupt the cycle so that you can experience a new, more confident mindset in any arena. Let's talk about how that happens. And by the way, this is the part where you can go to the Business of Happiness Hive, become a member, and you'll see it's one of the workbooks and PDFs that I give to my Hive members there for free. You can see this cycle, and then you can see where to insert the new actions or mindset or thought process to interrupt this cycle. This is what I talk about: conquering self-confidence, breaking the cycle. So the very first one is thought pattern. And what we do is we start with that very top of the circle, top of the cycle, the feedback loop, and we change our thought pattern. You don't have to believe it. In fact, you're not going to believe it. If for 40 years or 20 years or 60 years, you've been believing the same thought pattern that you want to change, it's going to be very difficult for you to dismiss that old thought pattern in a blink of an eye. So you don't even have to believe it. That's the magic. So if you've always felt like, oh, I can't, I'm a terrible mom. I've always felt like a terrible mom. I have extreme mom guilt. I do everything wrong. I'm so fearful that my children are all going to need counseling when they're older. This is something you've told yourself over and over again. I never had a good role model of a mother in my life, so I don't know how to do it positively. You can see how years and years and decades can reinforce this mindset. So let's just interrupt it with a new thought pattern. The exact opposite, in fact. Let's take the exact opposite of I'm a terrible mom and make it I'm a phenomenal mother. Just start saying that. There are 3 ways to start implementing the new thought process. Number 1, I love journaling. Something about when I write it down, it just solidifies it. It makes it more true for me. And it's the action of writing that really integrates it into my mindset. So even if you don't believe it, you don't have to. Just start saying, repeating the thought process. I'm a great mom. I'm a great mom. Because that's all that a belief is. It's a thought process that you keep thinking over and over again. You can change your beliefs by just changing your thought pattern. So another way to do that on a daily basis is to create a daily mantra. I'm a great mom. When you wake up in the morning after you've said your gratitude and you've started your day with a great intention, insert in there what you really want to feel confident about. I am a great mother. Just start saying it. Just start using that as your mantra. And every day, remind yourself when you get up in the morning to say that phrase. Another trick that I like to use is to put it on your cell phone. Now, this is where all the moms and all the grandmothers who are not very technologically advanced, get your son or your granddaughter, and they all know exactly how to do this, but put an alert on your phone that comes up at a certain time every day that surprises you. I like 2 o'clock. So 2 o'clock, a reminder, you're a great mom. And don't be embarrassed about what you're asking your grandchild to do. You're teaching them new resilient sources of how to strengthen confidence in areas in their lives where they might feel insecure. So welcome them to support you in this effort. I want to feel better about this. I want to feel more confident about this. So I'm going to start putting it on my phone. I am an author, right? You've never felt like an author before, but you've dreamt of writing a book. You feel insecure about the message or the story or your ability to write beautiful prose or beautiful poetry. Just start saying it to yourself. I am an author. Who's to tell you otherwise? Let's start repeating that thought process so that it can begin to affect our belief system. And that's one way to interrupt the cycle. Because as soon as we start believing it, buying into it just a little bit, it'll start to affect your action. This comes to the second opportunity to interrupt the cycle. If this feels too uncomfortable for you, if starting with your thought process and inserting a completely opposite thought process feels overwhelming, then start with action. You know, confidence is strengthened by action. Did you ever hear that TED Talk by Amy Cuddy about taking on a confident pose, a Superman pose or Superwoman pose? If not, I highly recommend it. She did so much research about what it does when you just assume a physical posture that assumes confidence. She looked at men and women who were going into a business interview, and she told them to either assume a posture that looked defeated or uncomfortable or not feeling of any confidence before they even entered into the interview. And then there was no comment on how they held themselves in the interview, but just to hold that, you know, shoulders slumped forward, head down, looking down to the ground, maybe back arched forward a little bit, that very unconfident look. And then she had another group who stood up proudly just in the minutes before their interview, shoulders back, head up high, nice deep breaths. And what they found was it was actually affecting the hormones in their body. It was actually affecting the cortisol levels were being lowered and the testosterone levels were actually increasing. And it positively impacted their interview to when the blinded judges at the end of the interview were interviewed, they unanimously chose the people who had stood in confident poses before the interview. And they didn't even know which was which, but unanimously they chose these people who were very confident just in the poses that they assumed before they walked into the interview. It's fascinating to me because what confidence is all about is presence. And when you're confident, people around you feel more comfortable and safe in your presence. This is so true for so many of my listeners who are in the healthcare professions. You know that if you're feeling a little bit nervous about something and shaky or insecure, your patients feel uncomfortable in that arena as well. If you're not in the healthcare profession, you might have been a patient in someone's hands who seems insecure, and your confidence is shot. You have no confidence in them at all. But it's the one that walks in and has this air about her that just says, I've got you. You're safe in my hands. Suddenly, I'm much more trusting of you. The same is true for parenting, and the same is true for leadership positions. When you take on an air of confidence, your employees feel much more confident in your ability to carry them through. You might not know at all what you're doing, but just that air of confidence will set you up for success because now people feel more trusting in your presence. You know, Tony Robbins talks about this too, about a hack of gaining confidence just in terms of your posture. And he says to do exactly that, to throw your shoulders back and stand up tall when you're feeling insecure or uncomfortable in a situation. I've even done this in social situations where I've been feeling a little bit uncomfortable or unworthy of the people I'm around. Deep breath, shoulders back, and just feel more confident immediately just following the posture. It's inserting the action. It's starting with the action that makes you actually feel that confidence if you can't give yourself that belief system from the beginning. And then the third place to start inserting a new interruption of this confidence cycle or lack of confidence cycle is the expectations or feelings. This is one that sports psychologists hone in on. This is when you close your eyes and you imagine yourself succeeding. Triathletes and Olympic athletes do this in a beautiful way. They envision themselves succeeding. They envision themselves flying down that mountain on skis and taking every turn and acing every turn and succeeding and winning the gold. They actually even envision themselves with the prize money or the winning belt or whatever it is. They picture themselves standing on the podium in success. And it enormously impacts their ability to do so in real life. So what they're doing is tapping into the feeling of how good it will feel when they succeed. You just assume you've already succeeded. You just assume that it's already done. How great is it going to feel once you complete that marathon? And you live in that moment for a little while. If you can do this on a daily basis, you start convincing your body how good it will feel when you do succeed and interrupt that pattern, that feedback loop. And then the fourth place to interrupt that feedback loop is the mindset about the results. We talked about this a little bit when we were looking at the 5K and the perception of my perception of running a 5K versus somebody else's perception. Results are purely subjective. Doesn't matter what that number is. It's always in our own mind's eye, the value and what it reflects in terms of our ability or our future ability. So when you tell me I got an 89 on an exam, that might be enormously empowering for somebody who's used to getting 40%, 50%, 60% on exams. Or maybe the class itself has an average of 40% and your 89 is phenomenal and a huge indicator of your knowledge base. Or an 89 could be extremely defeating if you're used to getting 99s on all of your exams. So this specific point in the cycle of gaining confidence is where you change your mindset. And this is another important thing that we talked about in terms of failure. Every successful person has failed at some point in their lives, but it's the mindset around the failure that is so unique and different. If you can look at it as an opportunity to learn and to grow and evidence of having tried. So if we go back to our example of wanting to be a great mom and feel like a great mother, guess what? You're going to fail from time to time. And that's so painful to hear. Oh, as a mom, that hurts so much to know that I'm going to fail as a mom from time to time. I was talking to my friend this morning about that and how you can tell me to fail at business, you can tell me to fail at love, you can tell me to fail at happiness, but failing as a mom hurts me. Oh, that crushes my soul, but it's the truth. There are times when I'm going to make a mistake as a mother. And this is where I can look at it a little bit differently. I can choose to see it differently. I can choose to see it as me trying passionately to do something new. I saw that. It didn't work. Now, how will I do it differently next time? Not taking it as a definition of me as a failure, but just as an example of having failed and now knowing more, being able to do differently next time with this new knowledge that I have. Remember that great quote, awareness is like the sun. It changes everything. It transforms everything it shines on. Now with this new evidence, I have a new awareness and I can do differently in the next phase. But see how I've changed the thought process. We got right back to the top of our feedback loop. My thoughts are not negative about me as a mother anymore, but more empowering and positive. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to use this new information to do differently the next time. You know, when I was preparing for this podcast, I thought, well, who is the greatest example of someone who is very, very confident? And I was reminded of a podcast that I'd listened to about Navy SEALs. And as you know, Navy SEALs go through this incredibly intense training that very, very few people can actually even be accepted into. And then an even smaller percentage of the people who are accepted into the training are successful and graduate from the training. And they did this research on what is it about the Navy SEALs who actually make it and succeed and graduate? What is their mindset that's different from the rest of ours? And how are they able to succeed? And what it all came down to, believe it or not, was confidence. It wasn't a genetic predisposition. It wasn't an upbringing. It was purely about confidence. And they noticed that there were 4 characteristics of confidence that all of the ones that graduated from the program exhibited. And it's fascinating to me because each one of them plays so nicely into our conquering self-confidence feedback loop. So the habit number 1 was they focus on the now. They chunk down enormous big expectations and big goals, and they keep them small, and they focus just on the present moment. So short-term goal setting and narrowing it down to small goals. Just do the job directly in front of you. And what I love about that is that's talking about the action step. It's just taking the action. Let's just do this one small action. Here we go. And even in there is a mindset that I can do it. I can do something small. You know, Glennon Doyle says we can do hard things. That's that belief system that if I just do this one small thing, I might not be able to do the enormous thing, but I can do this one small thing. I might not be able to write a whole novel, but I can sit and write down a chapter today or even a page. I can write down a poem today. And the second habit is they imagine how good it will feel. That was what we talked about when we insert into our expectations and feelings of the outcome, right? They do this trick that I had mentioned other Olympians do is they feel the feelings of how good it will feel when they succeed. So it's not just a matter of visualizing the success, but it's feeling the success. And one of the tricks that they do is they flood their body with oxygen when they feel insecure. This is where Marlies last week teaching us about breath work was so instrumental, because there are times when the Navy SEALs reported that they did start feeling their confidence slipping. They got into a situation and maybe now those negative stories started bubbling up again. They felt their heartbeat beating a little bit faster. And so what did they do in that moment? They returned to breath work. So a very simple practice of breathing in for 6 counts, holding for 2 counts, and then breathing out for 6 counts. So anytime they felt this nervousness or began questioning their ability to do what they needed to do, they would do this breath work and breathe in and hold it for 2 seconds and breathe out. For 6 count. What I find so intriguing about this is that it's doing exactly what Amy Cuddy found out in her TED Talk when she said lowering cortisol levels, and that is exactly what breathing does. It lowers cortisol levels and it makes us less reactive and more confident. And then the other habit that Navy SEALs, all the ones that were super successful, the ones that were most confident, was cheering themselves on. And I love this idea of these super tough men and women who are doing impossible physical feats and extremely courageous acts. I picture them in an ocean where it's hard to breathe and it's cold and there's all these things going against them, and I love imagining that they're cheering themselves on. It seems so silly and small, but it's such a valuable part of confidence. And that's that mindset piece and coming back to resetting ourselves and reevaluating the evidence and the results of our actions and looking at it in a whole new way and saying to yourself, you can do it. Focus on the next step. You've just done a great job. You've allowed yourself to try something new. All of those phrases are just embedded within us as somebody who's cheering ourselves on from the inside. I know I can figure it out. I feel myself slipping a little bit, but I know I can do it. It's that cheering on that increases self-confidence. I love this quote from Peter McIntyre. Confidence comes not from always being right, but from not fearing to be wrong. And that's such an important aspect of confidence, is being okay with making a mistake, being okay with learning, being okay with cheering yourself on a little bit, and then integrating these new techniques of just taking in deep breaths when you need to and slowing down and making things smaller. And then the other option is to give yourself a new thought pattern, to change the way you're thinking and change the story that you've created in your mind that up until today has defined you. My wonderful listeners, thank you so much for being here today. I have so much confidence in you. I know that you are so much more capable than you give yourself credit for. And now you can start giving yourself credit for that. Now you can start owning that confidence and start small. Remember, take a tip from the Navy SEALs. Just start really small. Pick something that you feel a little bit uncomfortable with, some area in your life that you don't feel that confident with, and see how you start changing and interrupting this cycle. Come on over to the Business of Happiness Hive and download this PDF and see where to insert this new thought pattern in conquering your self-confidence. And then give yourself evidence that you can do it and that this really can change your perspective in any aspect of your life. I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day and that this week ahead of you is just one of great excitement and evidence of your ability to really affect and impact the world around you. Today's going to be a great day. Bye-bye.